By the time I finish saying this sentence, you should be able to name at least 5 literary techniques in the example on the screen. But chances are, you can't. If you want to identify techniques quickly, all you need are these 3 steps. Step 0. 24 devices. To see techniques, you have to actually know techniques. So I need you to memorize at least 20 to 30 language techniques for each of the mediums you see on the screen. This is a baseline for senior English, Chief. It's non-negotiable. Step 1. Identifying techniques. Now, once you know them, there are pretty much only 2 ways to recognize them: by their appearance or by their meaning. By appearance is the basic method, and you probably do it all the time. This is where you notice techniques by certain sounds, visuals, or verbal cues alone. Think of the kid that doesn't even read a story, they just start scanning for the words like or as so they can spot the simile. And the only ways they can spot the simile is by the appearance of those words. You will find techniques with this method, but they're decontextualized and you won't really understand its meaning in full. It's a bad way to approach techniques long term, but it works well for a start. By meaning is the more advanced method for identifying and recognizing techniques. This is the better option. If method 1 is about scanning for techniques, then this method is the reverse. You read the sentence first, try to figure out the key meaning, and then work backwards to identify what techniques can create that meaning. This is a much more organic way of identifying techniques, and it usually yields better results too. For example, in real life, you don't sit in a conversation listening out for a technique. Oh, when are they going to use a simile? No. In real life, you hear something profound, it hits you, and later you try to figure out why or how was that so affecting.
Now, let's give these methods a whirl with the actual extract that you saw at the beginning of the video. If we were to use the first method, purely just scanning for techniques, we would probably spot a few of them really quickly. There are a lot of short, truncated sentences, there's a citation from a telegram, there's repetition of yesterday and maybe, there's the contrast of the name maman against mother, but as you can probably tell, these aren't immediately useful. We're kind of just playing the game here, trying to get the high score for most technique names dropped. This might work in like a comprehension exam, but if we're trying to write a strong analysis, we need a better grasp of these techniques. That's where the second method comes in. Here's how you do it. Slow yourself down. Really allow your mind to clear up and then read the extract and try your very best to read it the way that it was written, the way that it was intended to be read. Maman died today. Or yesterday maybe, I don't know. I got a telegram from the home. Mother deceased, funeral tomorrow, faithfully yours. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe it was yesterday. Immediately, there's a background sense of indifference. We might even describe it as a dejected or desolate tone. And surprise, surprise, that already is one technique. But what's more is now we can figure out which specific words made me feel that way upon reading, because those are the words and phrases that contain the techniques. So I read again slowly. Maman died today. There's a kind of piteousness in that. That first sentence actually creates pathos. The use of the diminutive maman feels like the word mummy. It's a term of endearment, and then only for the next words to reveal, died today. The contrast of that endearment with death is quite brutal. On top of that, there's this sense that it really hits the narrator hard. Why could that be? Yes, because it happened now. It happened today. And there is a technique for that. The deixis of today makes us feel that this is an immediate and present pain, not something from the past or a worry about the future. It's all very sudden. And we can keep going. The repetition of the adverb maybe gives this sense throughout the whole extract of uncertainty or indifference. Maybe the whole situation is too overwhelming for the narrator. The sentences all feel cut short and truncated, as though he can't find the energy or the words to speak anymore. As opposed to that, in the telegram, the omission of verbs makes the information feel very clinical, emotionless. So as you can probably tell, this method takes longer than the first one, sure, and maybe you wouldn't be able to find 5 techniques in 10 seconds like I suggested in the beginning of the video, but the techniques you do find this way will be much more meaningful.
This method is actually deceptively tricky to master, and it takes a while. So how do you improve? Step 2, technique recognition exercises. Now, the number one fastest way to get better at all of this, at technique identification in general, is forced recognition. Here's how this works. Take a 1-page extract from a novel, from a poem, from a newspaper, whatever, it doesn't really matter, and start like this. Identify one unique technique on the whole page. Easy! Next, identify 2 unique techniques per page, then 3. When you've gotten to 5, we're going to make some changes. Now, instead of finding 1 technique per page, we're going to find 1 technique per paragraph. When we've done that, 2, then 3, and so on. You see where this is going? Finally, the last part of the exercise is to limit yourself to a sentence and try to find 1 unique technique in every sentence of the page. If you need some examples, we've got a stack of them on our website, as well as a list of the most common techniques here. Learning this process can feel like a slog, but here's the good news. It's a one-time slog. If you learn this once, properly, it's permanent.